Hello and welcome to the EUphoria podcast. This is Season 8, Episode 3. I'm Daniel Drakos, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome the freshly promoted Challenger Leeson enthusiast, absolute Agurin hard stomper, Mark Caedrel Lamont to the podcast. Wow, welcome.
Dude, I love it when you got my back like that. You just hyped me up so much.
There's a lot of things that I can roast. Actually, there's not. I can roast you about playoffs and occasional stupid interactions that we have off camera, but I got to give you credit where credit is due because I didn't know. You know what I mean? Because you're the kind of guy that's going to tell me you can do it. Yeah. I'm going to list anything. I'm going to be like, could you fly? And you're like, you know what?
Yeah,
I bet I could. I could make that.
If I tried.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, if I flap my arms hard enough, I'm sure I could, get a little lift.
A bit of a wing.
So it's hard to know, which things you're actually going to be able to like hit 100% and when you're just, being a confident dude. But
yeah, everyone was doubting me on this bet thing about who could get higher elo. And all I said was, you know what I said?
What?
Watch me. And it just happened. Everything fell into all the stars aligned. And now we're skyrocketing through Challenger. But now that I said that, I'm probably going to lose every game.
That's true. We did just jinx you completely.
Yeah.
Young anime
But if you call out the
protagonist.
jinx, it counters the jinx, so the jinx doesn't happen. But now that I've countered the jinx and said that you can counter the jinx, I have to recounter it. So I have to say again, I'm saying it on purpose, this jinx, so it doesn't jinx.
Got it. For all the fans at home who are following along, this is what the darker side of sports fandom looks like when you get paranoid and you're convinced.
It's true.
This is inside the mind of someone who believes Shox actually has the power to curse people with a monologue, but now she has to uncurse, and then if she doesn't, then she doesn't. It's a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
That
was a cool intro.
I like it. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. That's where we're available. Today we're going to talk to Broken Blade about Schalke 04, and a little bit about kind of his position in the team, maybe how some of the rumors about the upcoming sale are affecting him. There's going to be a lot there. Excited to talk to him. We're going to enjoy kind of a new segment, kind of an old segment. If you remember, That's Effing Dumb. I've now rebranded it to Thanks, I Hate It. And we get more time to talk so that we're going to be able to talk. Some of it's going to be on topic. Hopefully, most of it's going to be on topic. I have no idea what Caedrel's brought to the table. Mine is on topic. We're going to look
Mine's on topic.
Nice, okay. We're going to look at next week's games. But before we do any of that, we need to talk about week 2. We need to talk about what is happening in the LEC right now. And I want to start by talking about our top teams. So G2 and Rogue right now looking like 2 top teams. G2 ultimately winning that matchup, but that was not just because we casted it, although I think we did a good job. I will give us that credit. Not to be too self-indulgent here, but that was one of the best matches that we've seen, I think, all season long.
Dude, that match was insane. I think I rewatched it. And there's so many cool macro decisions going on. From the smallest of inches of like G2's bot lane being kind of like off sync on the first wave and dying on the second wave and dying 2v2 to then complete Armageddon just unleashing and then Hans and Trimby getting punished for winning lane, which is a very common slogan in pro play. It's like you win your lane, you push out, the wave bounces in towards you and then you get 5-man dove and the game's over. So it's my bad for winning lane and pushing out. But dude, that game was really, really good in terms of like Caps and Reckless are fed. Obviously, they were carrying. But then you had like Odo with the insane flanks to clutch it for his team. Wunder, like with the 1 versus 4 almost on the entire enemy team. Hans being incredibly fed. Like everyone had a moment in that game, which I think was like the cool part about it.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, like you were another reason that I think this game was so cool. This game was so cool to watch from a spectator POV is that this is something I track a lot as a play-by-play. Is there's certain compositions that are just really interesting to watch always, and I think that AoE teamfight alt champions like Fiddlesticks and Kennen are always kind of hype when they're in a game because they're always looking for that angle. You always get to watch them look that angle, and kind of in this sense before the enemy team will when they found that angle. So watching Odoamne waiting over that wall next to Baron behind an enemy red on Infernal Rifts. So there's like no walls. There's like actually like so few places for him to hide. And come over the wall. It's just like, oh, it's such a rush. It's such a cool moment.
It's even better when you watch it back because he sits in the pink brush on the entrance red. If you ever watch this again, and then as they come, he runs around it, and then he sits there while they're on a ward clearing it, and he flashes over. So and not only this, but this was during the 4th Infernal Drake, right? The Infernal Soul for G2. So Rogue's communication must have been great, right? Like, let's start this up. Odoamne just says, okay, you guys start it. I'll hide here. When they come around here, I'll go around here, and then I'll just flash on them. It was so sick. But then obviously they tried it again in bot lane when G2 was trying to push and siege, and then that's when he saw like the Kennen flank is just useless. He like blast cones over the wall, gets one shot, stopwatches like 10 meters away from Reckless, and Reckless just like
Thumbs up. I'm
one-shot.
lethality Varus. I'll start charging another Q
So,
now.
yeah. It's cool when it works, but when it doesn't, it's just like. Oh,
and at that point, they were very far behind, right? Because it was Infernal Soul was stacked against them. I think G2 had. Did they have Baron too on that push? I
yeah,
can't
they had
remember.
Baron as well. Yeah.
So, yeah, they were just in a situation ultimately in their base where there's just nowhere the cannon flank can come from. And when you know the cannon's coming, he's not nearly as threatening. Shout out to Wunder for that same team fight where Odoamne popped off, really showing us how strong Viego is. And I think, don't get me wrong, because a lot of people are like, wow, Viego's so broken. That was pretty broken, but also Wunder played it super well. But
I remember you said last week, dude, Viego is like the most boring champ to watch.
He is boring, dude. He is boring.
But when I saw Wunder come around that flank, turns into Blitzcrank who kills Kalista, and turns into Kalista, kills Larson. Dude, that was Pog, man.
That was okay. So what I'll say is that was great, but notice that we didn't look at or talk about Viego for like the 28 minutes of the game.
Yeah, Wunder just got caught on side lane like 3 times, and then all of a sudden he just comes into a fight and kills everyone.
When he's hype, Viego is really, really hype.
Okay.
Any other moment, he just sits in his little shroud and like charges up his little ghost fist
like
thing.
Kamehameha.
Yeah, his little spectral little ghost clown thing, whatever the heck the stun is. Yeah, I don't know, man. Obviously, it's a very powerful champion. The resets are cool. Side note: we got to see Wunder later that evening, and don't worry if you're wondering about the hook bot lane where he turns into Blitzcrank, flashes forward, and whiffs a melee range hook. Yeah. He has been sufficiently roasted. I have had it confirmed by all of G2, us, anyone else who's also seen that clip, because that was. He could have just pushed E, as has been pointed out by
everyone.
Literally everyone.
It was a bit into yeah. It was a little bit into yeah. It was funny though. It was funny.
I mean, it was something. Looking at the standing schedule, so G2 are obviously 4-1. They're tied with Misfits right now. So there's the tie for first,
which is crazy to me that Misfits is like. I mean, they're a streaky team, but it's crazy to me that they're up there. I mean, they beat Fnatic.
Yeah.
They beat SK, Astralis, I believe, as well.
Yep.
They've
only lost to Rogue,
right? So even if you say to me, well, Misfits is only there because of strength of schedule, right? And they beat easy teams. Well, not really. You know, they beat Vitality, who were looking like pretty good because I think they just came off of beating Schalke, and then they beat Fnatic as well. So it's like, well, they beat decent teams. I must admit that those teams need more time to ramp up. So Misfits can't tunnel vision on them too much, but still props to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is really interesting because Misfits sitting at 4-1. Not to get too much into week 3 here, but they play Excel, which I think you would expect to be a win. They play Schalke, and while Schalke have shown us more, and we're going to talk to Broken Blade later, still feels like a very winnable game for Misfits. And in week 4, their last opponent, before we reset the round robin, is
probably G2 and
Mad
right?
and G2.
Which is crazy though, because if they finish week 4, let's say they go 2-0, right, against against those two teams, which are Excel and Schalke, then they're 6-1.
Yeah. And even if they go
first 4 weeks.
even if they go down to 6-3, like let's say they have a bad week 4 and they lose to Mad and G2, which isn't that unreasonable, just based on historic strength, right? That's still 6-3 for Misfits.
6-3 is great.
Misfits are at that point very clearly a playoffs team if they can repeat even part of that success in the second half.
Yeah, so I think that to me, the cool thing about the whole standings thing is like, it's summer split, it's Worlds, right, coming up. LEC has 3 spots at Worlds. Yeah. And now to me, when the split started, I was like, it's 3 spots, it's Rogue, G2, Mad Lions, right? There's no question. Mad look shaky, Rogue are making mistakes, G2 look like they're in form, but then there's like Misfits, Fnatic, who like, Fnatic, obviously, I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but they're getting a lot better, I think, quite quickly.
For sure, yeah.
And Misfits is just not a dark horse, but they're just like winning every game somehow. So now there's not really 3 teams in the race, not to jump to conclusion, like I said, but there's just like 5 teams now to me. And Vitality still needs a lot more time, I think, as well. I don't think they're quite there yet, but maybe they join the race. So I think Europe's definitely getting a lot more exciting. And I think that when it was this 3-horse race at the start of the split, although it's only really week 4, it's kind of surprising that these teams are just winning. You know, I expected Mad Lions and Rogue to just win their games, but they're actually dropping a lot of games here and there.
Yeah, and I think that shakiness is in summer, while obviously we give Mad Lions the benefit of the doubt because they went to MSI, because they took a break, and because like G2 has done this before, you know what I mean? And we should give that same level of respect to a team that's come back from MSI, that, you know, give them time. They deserve to take time away. It's a very dense competitive calendar in League of Legends. It's a brutal competitive calendar if you go to any international event whatsoever. Like really just basically means you get no time off. Yeah. So and that's rough. And so kind of give Mad more time to adjust, but it is crazy because just those teams you listed, right? we're kind of optimistic about Misfits. We're kind of optimistic about Fnatic. They could crash and burn, but right now it looks like they're getting better. But then we look at the bottom half of the table, right? Astralis, Excel, Schalke, Team Vitality, SK. Now, I don't have a ton of faith in Astralis, Excel, or SK. And that's...
Yep, I have to agree.
SK are 05, so that's an easy call, right? But I think Astralis, it's like that roster just wasn't very good last season. They're now on a 3-loss streak. Excel, they're looking a little better with
The
Nuke
only
Duck.
hope for Excel that I would say is they beat Mad, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So like you're 2-3, but you've beaten Mad, you've beaten Schalke, and then the problem is like you lost to Excel. So if you look at their strength schedule, they lost to Rogue, expected. They lost to Astralis. I don't know why they did. Well, not going to say that, but Astralis, let's just say props to them. And they lost to Fnatic. So they've lost to hard teams in a way, and Astralis, and they've beaten Mad Lions. So Excel's hard to say. I think Excel's on the cusp of like, maybe there's a chance. But to me, SK Astralis, I just think like, yeah.
Until proven otherwise, I don't have a ton of optimism about Excel or Astralis or SK rising. Now, again, SK 05, Astralis, they didn't change a roster. They couldn't make playoffs last time. There's not a lot of reasons for me to believe in them. And Excel have made changes, so we're just going to have to wait and see. But Schalke and Team Vitality, I kind of expect to progressively get better because Schalke, like Broken Blade, is still playing really well individually. I think Team Vitality, obviously, and maybe we're still tunneled in too much on this like leader self-made dream, but on paper that roster that's like a playoffs roster. You know what I mean? Like you look at that roster and you do not think that roster is not making playoffs. And Schalke, they're a little bit shakier, but because their mid laner has done so well and Kirei is slowly but surely starting to come back into form, I would argue, you kind of have that faith for Schalke. But
the cool thing is every team has their own story, which you can see from the outside, right? So like if you just go through all the teams, G2, they want to bounce back.
Sure.
Mad Lions just came off MSI.
Yeah.
They're probably burnt out. Rogue, they lost finals, reverse swept. They're hungry as hell, right? They want it. Misfits, it's like, feels like everything's coming together for them, right?
Yeah, finally.
Spring Split, it didn't. Streaky, yes, but it's coming together. Fnatic, explosive roster changes, and they seemed, just from an outside perspective on social media, their team environment looks great now.
Yeah.
Astralis, just trying to run it back. Excel, questionable changes, a lot of people, and they've got a lot to prove. Schalke, brand new mid jungle. Vitality, brand new mid jungle. There's a lot of cool stories, I think. But yeah, it's hard to read into these things. But just looking at the standings with like G2 and Misfits tied for first, Rogue, Mad, and Fnatic tied for third, like it's shaping up to be a cool race for playoffs again. Especially if you consider those 5 teams have made it, let's say, and then it's Schalke, Vitality fighting for the 6th spot as well. Like, dude, it's gonna get hairy at the end.
Oh, it's for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Vitality because they're 2-3 after 5 games, and obviously we had the self-made tweet kind of highlighting the fact that he felt like he was choking on stage. He finally was able to kind of end the week on a positive note after the just kind of getting honestly destroyed by Fnatic. That game was very, very, very one-sided. But what's your read on the progression in the weeks to come? Because obviously in the long term, it's kind of easy to believe in. They're going to figure it out. Leader self-made. We're finally going to get to see this jungle mid come into power. But when you think back to like last week's games and even when you look ahead to next week's schedule, how are you feeling about Vitality as a team right now?
It's crazy to me because when I watch Vitality's games, I feel like when they lose a fight, let's just say as an example, what their instinct is as soon as they lose this fight is to just fight again. So it's just like an exponential growth to the point where the game is lost within the first 20 minutes of the game because they fight, lose, fight, lose, fight, lose, fight, lose, and they just keep flipping it to keep fighting, and then they just fall behind. Whereas the opposite is true when they win the fights. Like they've got 2 wins, I think it is, but every time they won the fight, they forced again, because they're ahead, they keep winning, and then just all of a sudden turns into a stomp. So it's like stomp or get stomped, and there's no real middle ground for Vitality right now. Self-made with the tweet, obviously. They need to find more consistency, find their form a bit, and be a bit more... I don't know what the word is. Not more tame, because I think this aggression is good. They're trying to play... I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to play like a bit of an LPL team, which I can get with the players they have, I'm sure they all would love to play that playstyle with like Lebrov, leader, and self-made. But they just have to find their magic, or what's the word, their style in terms of when they fight, where they fight, and how they fight. I think these are big 3 questions they should ask themselves before, they just dive themselves into a 5-man play for no reason.
I mean, it's unpolished, I think is the easiest way.
That's a good word,
It's not 100% clean yet. It's very clear to see that from the outside. And Selfmade obviously took a lot of that burden on him by talking about his struggles in performance. If you guys didn't see the tweet, his Twitter, Selfmade lol, I believe. But also we look at their schedule and, they've beaten SK and they've beaten Schalke, and that's positive. You know what I mean? Like beating the bottom teams at this point is a good look. Now, when we saw them lose to Misfits at the time, we probably didn't know Misfits were going to be surging as hard as they did. So when you look back in hindsight, it's kind of an acceptable loss. At the time, maybe they were feeling pretty bad about it. But sadly for them, obviously everyone plays everyone, right? But schedule is always really interesting to me. This week they have to play G2 and Mad, and
that's rough.
That sucks. And my hope for Vitality is that doesn't affect them too negatively.
Yep.
Leader was very, optimistic about the team environment when he came on here pre-week 1. Obviously, he didn't want to oversell us. But if they can survive this week, they get the Astralis XL week. So to me, if I'm Vitality management, probably, I don't want to say how the players feel about anything. And I'm just like, how the hell do I get this team to playoffs? It's like, get 1 or 2 wins off of the teams that are clearly going to be in the top. You know what I mean? The G2s, the Mads. And that's a long shot, but get 1 or 2 of those. And then you just have to beat the Astralises and the XLs. And to me, this version of Vitality can probably just outclass Astralis individually.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And versus Excel, is it going to be a little bit harder? Yes, but Dan versus Selfmade, I'm giving that to Selfmade. Leader Nukeduck, that's a good, I think Nukeduck is still a good laning mid.
Battle of Norwegian mids.
Oh, Battle of Norwegian mids. You love to see it. Yeah. That's narrative, baby. Oh, the slow but steady conversion of you into a full-time caster. I love it. Soon it's gonna be lost forever to you, the pro playerness. Yes. You're going to try to rejoin a team, and you're going to be like, I think we really need to play through our star player here. And people are going to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Historically, you've been good on this champ, But no, I think also if you look at social media for Leader as well, one of his tweets, unfortunate start, but hopefully we'll find our scrim form. Sorry, and be a little bit more patient. And I've also heard that Vitality in scrims is performing great. And I think that the reason they probably perform great is because scrims are just pure chaos. Like scrims...
Yep.
Maybe some people have seen pro player scrims out there. Sometimes they're good blocks, Sometimes there are blocks where it's like not many kills, a lot of macro going on. It's fun. But the longer the day goes on, you get to game 4, game 5 of that day, it's just an absolute shit fest. It's just non-stop fighting, non-stop forcing, ganks level 2, level 1 invades, no one ever going for towers, just diving everyone. And I think that in that kind of environment, Vitality it's their playground, it's their hometown. But they just need to make sure they can replicate that on stage.
Yeah, but also how much of that is also on the opponent team, you know what I mean? That's my other big question. Anytime a team is doing really well in scrims, there's always a few aspects. It's like, are you not handling stage pressure very well, which doesn't seem like it would be an issue for this team. I don't really know what stage, quote unquote, stage pressure is like in this play from home environment. I don't really know how that affects players, but also your opponents just chill the hell out when you play on stage. You know what I mean? It's like in scrims, I believe that people are going to take the flip against Leader and try to outplay him. On stage, they probably just won't take the flip. You know what I mean?
I think that's where Vitality is struggling, right? I think when it comes to scrims, teams give them opportunities and they get the fights where their leader or someone gets a solo kill or they get solo killed or ganks will start to work, and then the early game just snowballs out of control where Vitality just stomp you. But when you get on stage and everyone's just hugging their tower and playing scaling champs, all of a sudden Vitality can't find openings and they're like, well, crap. Let's just try and force something anyway. Then they overforce, they don't have the patience, and then they just lose the fight, game's over. So they need to instill more patience in themselves when there's competitive games. And make sure that they can maybe try to replicate that in scrims instead of just getting sucked into the chaos all the time.
And that was one of the craziest things that I learned as I got deeper and deeper to esports and got to talk to more and more players, is that pro players just get bored and they force shit. It's the craziest. It's the craziest thing in the world to me, because when you're a caster and you're trying to understand why a team makes a play, you look at every possible variable. You're like, oh, how much money do they have? When do they want to reset? What objectives are coming up? Where do they have pressure? And you can make up these crazy stories in your head, excuse my language, where they're like, oh, this guy just got back, he just completed his mythic item, he's got pressure here.
Now they're gonna start the
Corky's
force.
about to get package, and then you talk to the pro player after the game, and he's like, yeah, I was bored, so I just started the fight, and you're like,
yeah, it's true, because especially as a jungler, when you full cleared your whole camps and you're getting outscaled and nothing's happening and no one's winning their lane, it's like, dude, I just screwed this. I'm just bored. I'm not sitting under my jungle or under my tower for the next 30 minutes. Just dive these guys. Just go dive.
Just go.
And then you win or you lose. And that's just how it goes. It doesn't sound very productive. It sounds quite, bad. But there has been games, even in my games, where it was me or other players or even the enemy team who were just like, screw this. This is just too boring. Just force something.
I would love if an analyst ever retired from a team fully, because I imagine making something like this could hurt their public standing. But if they just clipped and segmented every single play made by a player when they got bored, so we could see the ratio of how many of those bored plays actually were game changing and ended up being the right call, and how many were just completely griefing.
There's so many funny things in scrims where it's I don't know, the things I've heard in scrims are absolutely mind blowing. It's let's just take an example. My mid laner, for example, or my top laner gets solo killed 2 times.
Yeah.
And I say so why'd you get solo killed? It's just a matchup. Sorry, can you say that again? It's just a matchup. Oh, okay. So the matchup is you just get solo killed 2 times, and then there's like all of these terms which are really funny. It's like I play a jungle matchup and I'm down 5 camps at minute 3. Yeah, it's just a matchup. It's like loads of memes in pro play. It's really funny.
Oh man. I like the it's just the matchup. That's the I love
it's a classic.
If you're
ever getting solo killed and outperformed, or like in
guys,
jungle as well.
Matchup.
It's just a matchup.
It's just the matchup, guys.
2v2
you can use that.
Out jungled. That's just a matchup.
And then if they reference and they're like, what that's BS, be like Challenger Lee Sin jungle one trick Caedrel was actually the one who introduced me to this concept, and he said it's just the matchup.
Yeah, it's the best excuse ever. Because they'll never know because it's your role. You just say it's just a matchup. It's the number one way out.
What do you know about blank versus blank?
Yeah, how do you know how to play this matchup?
What
it's just
are you
a
talking
matchup.
about. Yeah. TF's supposed to solo kill you 3 times in lane. It's fine. It's fine. He does. Yes, he does negative damage, but I have to take 2 tower shots just to just like absolutely. Like, how deep can you go?
You just weren't playing around me properly. Okay, dude.
Passing the blame, a critical life skill for surviving solo queue and pro play, it would seem. So, I mean, Vitality's interesting. The other side of Vitality, because I think the Fnatic and Vitality I kind of always look at as
intertwined.
Very intertwined. Yes, that's the exact word I was going to use. Thank you. It's 2 weeks of Whipple jungle. You're a good jungler. Score out of 10. How is Whippo doing? Weeks 1, week 2, do you feel like you've seen improvement? Obviously, Fnatic as a team are doing better, and Whippo certainly had his moments, but like, how do you feel about Whippo in the jungle?
I think he's doing really good. I think he's doing really good, and I think he's doing really good on champions which aren't meta. Like the Cartus Viego performances, I think were fantastic.
Yeah.
I think his Rumble games were also good. The Udyr was a bit out there, we'll say.
The Ghost, yeah.
I think I'd give him a 7.5 out of 10. I think I'm really impressed with Whippo, given the fact that he's been playing jungle, let's say now, 2 months, probably max. Week 2 or 3 weeks, give or take preseason. Now coming into the 4th week of LEC, I believe it is. So, or third week or 4th week?
We're going to 3rd week.
3rd week of LEC, sorry.
It gets blurry when you have a super week at the start. Yeah, I feel you.
We'll say around 2 months he's been playing jungle. I think he's doing really well. He's adapted well. I think his team's getting better to play around him. And I think he's found a clear win condition for his team. And sometimes I like to ask for like jungle heat maps. I know that sometimes we can't get those things, but if I imagine a jungle heat map of Whippo right now, bot lane is like red. He is a lot towards the bot side, and I think there's good reason for that. I think he has got the best bot lane in the league. And I think that he's realized that and he's playing around it.
And that was my next question. Are Upset and Hylissang the best bot lane in EU? Because the other side of this is that as much as Whippo naturally becomes the center of attention, again, because he's a player who role swapped, he's a very vocal player, and it's something that you want to watch. This is, for better or worse, an experiment that I think just drags me in. I need to know how Whippo's going to do in the jungle. But that said, the rock-solid, consistent performers in this 3-win streak of Fnatic have been Upset and Hylissang. Now, Upset's always easy to highlight because he played those 2 games of Kalista. He absolutely popped off. But also Hylissang, who is still doing all of the same Hylissang things, but is just not dying very much, which is crazy. Both of those, I highly recommend to go back and watch both of the Kalista Braum Fnatic bot lanes and watch Hylissang. There are so many scenarios where it looks like Hylissang is absolutely dead, and he walks away with like 100 HP. It's crazy.
Yeah, he has not... Okay, I'm just looking here at Summer right now. His last 5 games of LEC so far, he has not broken past 7 deaths. 6 has been his max. You look at LEC Spring, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8. So he's definitely found a little bit more consistency in the death department. But I always thought of Hilly as like the most deaths player of the league, and he was proud of it. So respect to Hilly anyway. But I think there's 2 big reasons why Whippo's playing bot side. Number 1, Upset on Kalista. I think Fnatic have found a clear game plan on how to win games, get a winning bot. And the second one is Whippo and Hylissang. I think that they were an ocean apart when they played top versus support. And now they can actually rejoin themselves in jungle support. And I think the cool thing about the LEC is every bot lane is stacked, I feel like. Even you got Hans Trimby, you got Reckless Mickey, you got Upset Hylissang. It's hard to make an argument for who's the best bot lane. I think best bot lane specifically in lane phase, I think I would give it to Fnatic.
Yeah.
But there's so many good bot lanes. Even Karzi Kaiser is really good, but they've been having a few off games here and there. I think Neon Limit is a good bot lane. I think Crown Shot Labrov is also a good bot lane. I think even Misfits with Kobe Vander, I think they've started to find their form as well. So
it's true, yeah.
I think there's definitely a clear cut of who the best are. I'd give it to Upset Hylissang in lane. Most consistent, best performing bot lane so far in the year, I think, is Rogue's bot lane. And I think highest peak bot lane is like Karzi Kaiser at MSI, right? So there's loads of different things you can attribute to each team. And yeah.
It depends on what kind of metrics you go for, and it's good, I think, that you call that out. Because the one thing that I will say from like a meta perspective is that there are, I think, 2 bot lanes that stand above the rest right now for me, and it is Hans Trimby and Upset Hylissang. And it's really easy to give them that credit because they are the 2 that are drafting the Kallistas and just absolutely smashing the enemy bot lane into the ground. You know what I mean? So like you don't even need to get to the late game or start to look at like, ooh, how are they positioning in fights and like how many autos are they getting off? You know, how clean is their movement? How good is their positioning? Because you get to see it in the first 5 minutes of the game. And part of that is just because Kalista is such a ludicrously oppressive champion and not very interactive in the early game for the enemy ADC. But specifically for those 2 lanes, like if I have to draft against either of those teams, I'm sweating because they're going to ban Ezreal if you don't ban it, right? Just so that your AD carry can't play anything safe. And then they're going to kick your shit in, you know? And it's like, do you take a Kalista away and give them the remaining high tier AD carries? Because it's like lethality Varus, by the way, despite the nerfs, still broken as hell.
In lane phase as well, especially. And then speaking of lethality Varus, it's Reckless, right? Who we haven't really touched on much. I think Reckless Mickey had quite a quiet spring, I would say. But now coming into summer, they're getting 2v2 kills non-stop. Reckless is playing Varus. Reckless is playing Tristana. You know, he's not sticking to his comfort champions, you know, where he would default to things like the Jhin and maybe shy away from the Kai'Sa every now and then.
Yeah.
I think that he's definitely found a lot more diversity in his champion pool, which is great to see. Obviously, it's only the second week that we've seen. But his lane phase with Mickey seems a lot more on the same page, barring the rogue game. They're getting 2v2 kills left and right. Reckless is stealing objectives, getting mid-prio, hardly ever dying, doing the most damage on his team. So it's hard to say whether Reckless and Mickey are one of the best bot lanes in the league. Obviously, they're still top 3. But I still think like Hans Trimby, for example, for me, it looks fantastic. And Upset Hylissang as well.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to see, and again,
so many good bot lanes.
When you play these Kalista lanes, that people are in sync naturally, because Kalista just forces you to be. And also you play these aggressive champions supporters. She's got an ult that literally forces these moments of high interaction moments we should support. I still think that Reckless and Mickey are 2 of the best players in the league. But I'll say 100%. That it's been a bit hit or miss. Part of that is lethality Varus. I think lethality Varus is a champion who, even if he doesn't get any kills early game, will just sit and farm and do nothing for 80% of the game and then land 1 arrow or 1 good ultimate and end the game. And that's just the strength of the champion, right? So it's really not the biggest opportunity to show off great duo synergy moments. But you saw it in the some of the Tristana Braum games. They were playing really well together, consistently using Tristana jump as essentially a jump for Braum to get them up close. I think the only thing that I'll say is that, like, I'm with you. I like that the Jhin is gone, but all we've seen so far is Tristana Varus. So if anyone's worried ever about Reckless's champion pool, it's like, obviously he's a long-standing player, but what I'll say is it always feels like whatever the meta is, he's got a number of picks that he's really comfortable with, a number of picks that he's really good on. And it seems like he usually sticks to those. In last playoffs, it was the Jhin, which I think caught me off guard, caught a lot of people off guard. And so we'll see now if there's more, if we're going to get the like full crazy champion pool Reckless, or if he's just going to have new meta standbys. And when there's a big shift, is that going to hurt them? Because in contrast to Caps, who has played 5 different champions in 5 games, or Mickey, who's played 4 different champions over 5 games, it's not super wild yet.
It's not that wild.
Even if it is, it's good to see him branch out, though. It is good to see him step away from old standbys and get back into like the Varus swing of things. This was the first time he played Varus in a very, very long time when he brought it out in the LEC pace.
Yeah, and Tristana as well. Feels like it's been forever since I've seen Reckless's Tristana. I don't think he played it at all last year either, so it's really cool that he's playing Varus Tristana and he's back on it. But I think that all these bot lanes, just to round it out a little bit, like I think we hit on, there's loads of metrics you can use to claim who is the best bot lane in Europe, right? You've got, like we said, Upset Hylissang in lane, Hans Trimby for what they do for their team. Reckless, I think, is a good consistent AD carry. Like, he's late game insurance. And also, the amount of gold you give into him versus the amount of damage and stuff that he does for your team is really, really impressive for what he can translate. And then Karzi Kaiser have like the highest of highs, but also like the lowest of lows. So every metric's different for these bot lanes. Can come down to personal preference. But
it's like
I just love the fact that all these bot lanes are just so strong.
Yeah. To me, it's like Karzi Kaiser, like cryptocurrency. It's like feast or famine. If you get in at the right time, you're making mad money. You hold on to it a little too long, or you come in at the wrong time, you're losing big.
The patches come out.
Reckless is like, he's like an index fund or some like really safe investment where you get a little percentage. You're always going to get back well on your return. It's always going to be positive. Every once in a while, maybe you get a little bit extra, but it's never gonna cost you. You know, it's never a flip betting on Reckless.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. I think it's a solid thing to see. And I think it's good that you keep bringing up like how stacked bot lane is, because I think it's, again, an easy thing to forget, especially in a meta where I don't know. Outside of the Kalista games, sometimes it's hard to appreciate a lot of these bot lanes when Ezreal's really popular, and Ezreal's a champion who also is always very safe, always solid at getting lane prio, but can be this crazy pop-off champion or just this very safe, very boring, very underwhelming champion.
And that's what we're yet to see from two teams especially, Rogue and Fnatic. What are Rogue and Fnatic like if Kalista's off the table and they can't really play through bot lane? Let's say Kalista Varus are out and your AD carries are on things like Ezreal and, I don't know, let's just say Ashe, for example, or Xayah, or Senna. And they're like not so much strong side, but more so weak side. And you have like skirmishes. You have Lee Sin top, you have Viego mid, you have an AP carry jungler, for example. How do these teams really function if they have to play through other lanes? I think we're yet to see that, especially from Fnatic playing through top for Adam, barring like that one gank that Bwipo did on Carter's top. It was more like Adam being quiet on the Wukong and then him just joining fights.
Yep.
But then you look at teams like G2 and Fnatic, they're easily able to adapt, perhaps, Yep. Or G2 especially, sorry. That they can actually just play through top, they can play through mid, and then Reckless can just chill and farm. They don't have to play through bot, they don't have to pick Kalista. So I think we're yet to see what Rogue can do, especially when Kalista's taken off the table, or Draven's off the table, or Varus, and they actually have a losing bot matchup for once. Obviously, they're going to try to avoid that as much as possible, but if the enemy team's red side and they can counter pick support, then you're going to have to face it eventually.
And I think as a final note on this, Upset's a guy that I've had the chance to talk to a lot over the years, and he was a player that we kind of called out, at least on broadcast, as having a small champion pool back in the day, because it was when Kai'Sa was in meta, he played 40 games of Kai'Sa. It's an exaggeration, but let's just say, and played very little else. And his philosophy always has been, as far as I know, and it could change over the years, if you give me the S tier, I'm going to pick the S tier always. Always, 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 always. So until someone forces, if he likes Kalista, he'll pick something else. But what I will say to his credit is, anytime he's forced off, he usually has something else. And one thing that we've seen from Fnatic is that they are willing to experiment with bot lane. Both Rogue and Fnatic on their first day banned away the Ezreal Varus and then picked an aggressive bot lane. In Rogue's case, they got the Kalista Alistar. In Fnatic's case, they tried Xayah Rakan. Now, Xayah Rakan didn't work, but I like that. And the thing that it shows to me is that Fnatic are going to continue, not just in the case of Bwipo, but even in the case of bot lane, they're going to be a team that is willing to experiment. And I love that. I get so tired of stale meta. So I love when League of Legends gets to be a game where people can think of new picks and break the meta with creativity rather than waiting for the next patch.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, after having known Upset for I don't know how many years now, since like 2017, and just seeing how good he plays in scrims all the time, and never really being able to find a form to translate it on stage in a way where it's like, yes, he made finals before, but everyone was always like, is Upset really that good? And he never really had the pop performances. Now that he's coming for Reckless, after being the biggest question mark ever, I think I can safely say that Upset's definitely like stepped into Reckless's shoes, we'll say, and probably preceded expectations by a long shot, I think.
Yeah.
Because of how strong that bot lane is. Upset Hylissang duo looks scary.
Yep, I think I agree. Exceeded expectations most certainly. And ready to see what they can do next week. We'll talk more about the upcoming week after our next segment, Thanks I Hate It, which we're going to get to now. Woo! So, Thanks I Hate It is basically just us rambling about things that we don't like. Each of us get a chance to bring a single topic each time we do this. And as I'm starting things off here, I'll start things off in the topic. And I think you're not surprised, Caedrel, because we've had this conversation before. This week on Thanks I Hate It from me, SK roster swaps. Thank you, SK. I hate it.
Unleash, Daniel.
All right. So for context, before I can rant, I got to make sure everyone is caught up on all of the elements. So first off, Tinks is roll swap to jungle. Jez is from coach to support. Treats. Sorry. Tinks is benched. For few notes, it's not a roll swap that they intend to commit to long term. So at some point, presumably after the split, maybe later, Treats will go back to support.
I think that's very important to note. Like Treats,
yes.
He
temporary.
As much as he doesn't want to do this, he has to do it right now, and he is going to go back to support. He said that multiple times.
Yes. So from his perspective in the interview that he did with Lore, he said SK didn't have the time/resources to get a new jungler. From the video that Innerflame put out, basically they didn't have the time resources to get an LEC level jungler. And rather than get a ERL level jungler, that's right, challenge releasing right here.
Challenge releasing right here.
Available for the low price of $5 million. I'm kidding. I don't want to. What if they actually approach you? We'll see. They didn't think, they wanted to preserve kind of the team synergy and the progression of the team, and they thought an ERL jungler would interrupt that. From the Treats Twitter statement, the benching of Tinks, their former jungler, came from a number of problems that stem from synergy issues. Not entirely sure what that means. And according to Interflame, so again, I'm just listing information for you before I rant because it's important that we all have the same information before I start popping off. And according to Interflame, every single member of the team was on board or they would not have followed through. So Tinks was benched on very short notice, and that's part of the reason why they couldn't get an LEC replacement.
During their preseason scrims, I believe it was.
During their preseason scrims. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I don't like about this. And first and foremost, it's kind of this, when you digest all this information, there's a lot of stages, kind of like coping. I went through like anger, I went through like, there's a little grief, with sadness.
Through copium to hopium to copage.
To copage to eventually acceptance. And kind of when you take all of this information in about everything that's happened, essentially the underlying truth that they have presented to us is basically that like whatever was going on with Tinks was so bad that they are willing to roll swap Treats to the jungle for a single split and bring Jesus back into coach.
Their best player.
Their best player. Treats. Yes, their star player. And Treats has been doing well in the jungle. This is not a dig on Treats in the jungle. This is a dig on the thing overall. And so if that's true, which you would assume that it is at that point, one, there better be some freaking Dennis Rodman levels of drama with Tinks to justify this when this is all done. Because otherwise it doesn't make any goddamn sense. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt that this is the best possible option moving forward. Why did it happen on such short notice? Is the first question. Let's trust that everything they said is good. Why did it happen on such short notice? If there was potential for this, to happen, if you were unsatisfied with these synergy issues, surely you noticed last split. Surely it would behoove you to come up with a freaking backup plan, because this is a shit backup plan. And here's the thing. It causes so much problem. You have stunted the growth of Treats as a support. He can grow as a player, no doubt in my mind, right? You have probably ruined Jesus's chances as a coach here. If I'm looking at it, maybe they're a great team and they could be really open and honest about this. But if my coach sprints it at any point during the season, and then I have to listen to that guy tell me how to play League of Legends, and again, coaches aren't supposed to be great League of Legends players. But there's a big difference between out-of-game communication and in-game communication. But if my coach is in the game and he is not making God-tier calls all the time and he wants to go back to being my coach, it's going to be really hard for me to listen to him give me advice on how to communicate. He's like, well, you really need to communicate clear here. And it's going to be like, oh yeah, like you
Stop
did
griefing
last
my lane
split
then.
when we were 0-5, and like maybe everything is going great again, but the stakes are so weighted against him that, because also the other alternative is he's a great support. He pops off. He's a great support. And then you want him on the starting lineup. But either way, his position as a coach is not looking good anymore when he gets put on the lineup. Like, I think it's in your best interest as a coach to say no. You need to have a separation from the team. There needs to be a clear line there. When you blur those lines, it doesn't get better for anybody.
Dude, I think I'm starting to realize with you like ranting about this in such a serious way, no one's a winner here. Everyone is a loser.
Yes!
Literally everyone's career is losing here.
And I don't want to pin blame on any single person. I don't know. Ultimately, I think the biggest issue is that SK didn't have a backup plan, right? And that this all happened such short notice. And it's like, again, maybe Tinks said something really horrible or did something or acted really horrible in their preseason scrims that had never happened before.
I can see what you mean, yeah.
Then I can see it.
But if it's just bad play and lack of synergy, then come on.
You saw it all of spring!
You're going to ruin Summer. You're going to ruin Treats.
Yes.
You're going to ruin Jesus.
Yes.
And you're going to ruin just SK in general in terms of like the split just because there was synergy issues. I'm sure you could work through it on stage. I've had weeks of scrims where I've gone 1-24 in the scrim sets. 1 win, 24 losses. On the weekend, I went 2-0. That's actually happened. You can ask XL. And there wasn't synergy issues. There was, bad team. All of us were just boosted, but it still worked.
Yeah, and again,
okay, maybe we're going too hard here.
Yeah, and again, Tanks might be a fine player. It might be as simple as synergy issues. And then the issue is that SK didn't have a backup plan, and that sucks. And that really sucks because it hurts the whole team. Because now when you look at SK, I think the problem is, again, this is a temporary role swap. That's the other big issue here. If this was a permanent role swap, then it's like you've got one split of Jesus support, but Treats gets time to work into his new role. It's fine. But you're swapping back. So realistically, this is not a summer split plan for success. And then he has to swap back, and you have to integrate a new player to a team. And again, the reason that they didn't get an ERL player before, according to Interflame in the statement that he made on Twitter, was they really valued the synergy that they currently have as a team. But at some point, you have to get a new player. And thus, Interflame's coming in to start jungler, like this sacred team synergy. At some point, you have to be able to integrate new people into it.
I've just realized something. I'm really mad now.
What?
Treats' contract runs out at the end of the year, and he's going to go back to support. So any other team that wants to sign Treats for 2022 or SK, let's say, how do they have recent evidence of his support play if he's a jungler for
They're
summer?
going to give him the benefit. He's been a
Maybe
good
they'll
jungler.
give him the benefit of the doubt and say, well, in 2021 spring you were good, but that actually frustrates me a little bit that his contract will run out this year, and then the teams can't really see what kind of support he was in summer, you know?
And again,
because he could have been an amazing support in summer.
It's like a frustration shotgun. There's so many little things to be annoyed about. And the big issue for me is, again, this can't be a summer plan. Spring, you have to swap back and integrate a new player, which is probably going to be difficult in a process, which means it's not a spring plan more likely than not, which means we're waiting till summer 2022 for whatever dream SK lineup SK are building for us. Like, that's it. We're waiting till summer 2022. And maybe spring, if things are favorable. But while I will give Treats the benefit of the doubt, he has to swap back to support, has to relearn support. Then there has to be another jungler coming in. And all this is assuming they keep the same roster. And if they make massive roster swaps, then this makes even less sense because they should have just got a new player here anyway. Because otherwise, again, this great team synergy, this great team environment is going to go boom and you're going to have to rebuild it anyway when you bring in new players. So, TLDR.
You're mad.
I'm just annoyed because it's like, and again, they're 0-5, so it's easy to come in here and smash on them. And if this had worked from the start, I still think it would have been stupid, but at least it would have been successful. You know what I mean? So I hope for the players, for everyone involved in this, that this works out for them. But from a decision-making process, this is really dumb.
Yeah.
Something somewhere is dumb. There's so many variables. There are so many different things. Someone, somewhere along the line, messed up to put us in this position. And again,
and everyone's a loser.
If you're secretly the Dennis Rodman of European League of Legends esports, I'm really excited for when that story comes out. Otherwise, hearts out to Tinks, because while SK is going to struggle as a team, the real person who gets burned more than anyone in all of this is Tinks, because he's sitting there on SK, he's chilling, didn't have a great split, didn't have a terrible split, but now he's the guy that literally had
playoffs.
They made playoffs. And his first split.
His first split.
Incredible. Like, it's a solid achievement. But now he's the guy that got role swapped on. Now he's the guy that they would rather put a jungler in the place to play on. And that makes me sad for him and for SK, because ultimately right now they're 0-5 and it just feels like it's just a mess.
I agree.
That's my rant. Thank you, SK. I hate it. Roster
Is
swaps.
it my turn now?
It's your slap. It's your turn.
Okay, now it's my turn to rant about something I hate. Do you know what I really hate?
I'm so
I
ready.
hate when I make a food order and I order a burger and I say no sauce and then it has sauce on it.
Are you kidding
That makes me so mad. No joke.
I wrote an essay.
No, seriously.
I wrote an essay in
please,
here
don't
for
interrupt
treat.
me. Listen. I'm serious. Listen. I dislike sauce on burgers in general. Just sauce in general. I'm not a sauce person. Any people out there who go to McDonald's or some restaurant or fast food place and they say no sauce, I respect you. I'm the same. I like the taste of the meat. I like the taste of the veg, and the sauce. It just makes my mouth like I don't know the texture. I don't know what it is, but I don't like sauce, and that's what I hate.
Okay, there's a lot here to unpack. First off,
no, there's not.
Yes, there is. You're allowed to hate whatever you want. You're your own free soul. First off, secondly,
I like ketchup though.
That's a sauce. You can't just blanket say you hate sauce. What sauce do you hate? Do you just not like mustard? Okay, God, there's so much. This is even more complex. We're gonna fight more about this than about the treats.
Not a fan of mustard. Not a fan of.
We go to Subway regularly.
Not a fan of mayonnaise.
What sauce do you get on your Subway?
Salt and pepper.
That's it.
That's it.
That's a dry sandwich.
No, it's not. It's great. I love it.
That's like eating the Sahara
Desert. It has cheese
desert.
on it. It has cheese on it. It tastes so good with cheese. Oh my God. Melted cheese is a great sauce.
Melted cheese is not a sauce.
Now, mayonnaise is very big here in Germany.
Yeah, mayonnaise is good.
Not a fan. Burger sauce.
Which is like mayonnaise, ketchup, and sometimes maybe relish or something.
Not a fan. Mustard. Not a fan.
Oh my.
Ketchup's all right. I'm fine with ketchup. Now, I might have angered every single person watching this video, especially people who like sauce, and I apologize. I have nothing against people who eat sauce. I just personally dislike the taste of sauce in my mouth.
But you eat ma.
Yeah.
And that's ma, for the record, is Korean food, Korean fast food.
But that's like a spicy
marinated.
ketchup.
That's marinated. Oh my God, it's not spicy ketchup. You just Jesus. Oh,
it's like a spicy ketchup.
Oh, you're just offending so many cultures. How many cultures?
No, I'm serious. That's what it tastes like.
It's not a spicy.
Maybe my taste buds are a bit bugged, but seriously.
Okay.
No, it's like a spicy.
So it's not.
It's like a red paste, spicy. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like gochujang and a bunch of other stuff. It's bulgogi marinade is the easiest way to describe it.
Marinade is nice.
Okay.
I like me some
Marinade. So, okay, we have to move on soon because I'm sorry I took most of the time. And we're going to come back to this at some point because this.
I've offended a lot of people here, and I apologize.
And I am first and
But
foremost.
there's that one person.
They're going to find out in 24 hours. I have to live with this for
there's
24 hours
that one
more than
person
anyone else.
or two people sitting there like, oh, I don't like sauce either. Or I don't get sauce in my burgers either. And
Yeah. Who doesn't like sauce?
you'll never understand. You'll never understand the
Okay.
struggles.
So here's the thing. So interestingly, Connie, my SO, also not a big sauce person.
Yeah.
But condiments are kind of a part of thing, right? But here's the thing.
I like garlic sauce
Sauce
and herb.
to me. So marinade, let's take
Some of them are
marinades out. Let's take like condiment style sauces. So it's not core to the thing, but just like a Subway sub where you like throw some barbecue sauce on it. It's essentially a condiment, right? That's what we're
Sauce,
talking
not
about.
bad.
Okay. I think that the reason they're great is because they save crap food. I think if you make really good food and it's marinated and it's fancy, like you don't need an additional sauce. I think you just don't. You know what I mean? It's really good. But what burgers are you buying in Berlin that you want to taste the meat, my dude?
Dude, okay, listen.
You said McDonald's.
McDonald's.
You're like so thrilled on that like A-3 Wagyu or whatever the hell it's got to be that you're like, I need to taste this.
No, the McDonald's mayonnaise on the chicken burgers, not a fan. So I have
That's
to get,
true. That's kind of trash.
not a fan. So okay, let me restate my statement.
Okay,
before we move on.
you can restate it and then we
real
gotta
quick,
go.
real
Yes,
quick.
all right.
Yeah, okay. Sauce in general, not a fan. Some sauces acceptable, not acceptable to the point where it's like fine, I'll eat it. I like it, you know. I think some sauces, like garlic and herb sauce, for example, on like meat is really good. You know, like barbecue sauce is good on ribs, for example. Ketchup's good with fries, but like mayonnaise and mustard and horseradish, all those things on the burgers, yeah. And when I see people with the pizzas with like sauce all over it, I'm like, man, you just like, why did you do that, man?
I swear to God.
So,
If
yeah.
you're talking about the pesto sauce that's on the salami social club
No, not
pizza,
pesto
we're
sauce.
gonna
Like
fight.
I see some Scandinavian pizzas with like sauce all over it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I've
But
never
like,
tried those, but so personally, I don't know. But just in general, maybe you'll hate me for this, but I just dislike sauce. Yeah, there it is. And fish. I don't like fish either.
I mean,
Maybe I'm a bad eater, but I love food. I really do love food, but I don't like sauce.
okay, that's a lot to unpack. Well, you can follow this discussion. We can follow this discussion up, maybe on stream. We're gonna do mukbang at some point, but that's enough for Euphoria because we have to. I'm deeply offended, and we need to. Your definitions are also loose at best. We need to nail this down so you can.
Okay.
Regardless,
We'll do it.
I'm. Whew.
You're fuming.
I'm gonna take a breath.
Okay.
You take a breath. We're gonna
No,
reset.
I've been breathing. I'm fine.
We're gonna reset because Broken Blade is on standby and we want to talk to him. And I'm not taking. You don't bring up sauce in this interview, Caedrel.
Raw sauce.
No sauce in the interview.
Man's hot. Man's not hot.
You have to imaginarily pinky promise me that you're not gonna bring up sauce in this interview.
Man's not hot. Raw sauce.
All right, I'm just gonna get what I get, I guess. All right, we're gonna talk to Broken Blade about Schalke. Let's go. Anything but sauce. It's now my distinct pleasure to welcome none other than Broken Blade to the show. Mr. Broken Blade, how are you doing today, man? How's life? The sun is gone for the first time in an entire week. It's not scorching hot. Are you living the good life?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I actually had a lot of trouble sleeping in this weather, but now it's a lot better.
It's hot.
Yeah. And the birds are up at like 4 a.m. because that's when the sun rises. And I don't know about you, but I keep my windows open to deal with the heat, but then I can hear the birds and then I can't
Yeah.
get back to sleep.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
It's actually a nightmare.
It's a lose-lose whatever you do.
Air conditioning, Germany, please.
Yeah, unless you have that.
Yeah, which nobody, of course, does. So, I mean, kicking back, and I know you've answered some of these questions already, but I would, in past interviews, but I would love to get your thoughts. It's been a bit of a mixed bag so far this season for Schalke, but kind of to be expected, as was already mentioned. You guys made huge changes to the team. And so from your perspective, how was it to lose Abbedagge and Gilius, two players that you personally have a pretty decent amount of history with?
I mean, honestly, it was kind of a shock as well for me, in the offseason when Abbe kind of approached me. He said, hey, I think I'm going to go to 100 Thieves. And I was obviously kind of like sad that he's gone because he was a very, very strong player in my opinion. And also he was one of the reasons why I even came to Schalke in the first place. But in the end, I don't have a grudge on him or something. I'm actually happy for him that he thought that it's the best decision in his career. And obviously he's my friend. So I can only be happy for him, like obviously I was kind of sad, but I'm happy that we got Nuclearint as a replacement. I think he's been doing really well, especially I think he's very, very promising, has a lot of mechanics, he just kind of needs to like learn the game kind of, when to do which decision, like that's the kind of things he needs to learn. But then I think he will be just as strong as Abbedagge in the future.
I like it. I was personally caught off guard by how good he was, if I'm honest, because he came out swinging. He had some solid first games, and I thought, given kind of the context of the swap and Abbedagge coming in, and I didn't get to see the behind the scenes, I was like, oh man, what are Schalke going to do? Who are they going to grab? And I knew nothing about this guy because he wasn't, I think, at the forefront of my mind when I was looking at the kind of the EU Masters talent that people might bring in. But I think he kind of crushed it in his first few weeks as far as expectations go for rookie mid laner. Caedrel, what were your thoughts?
I think he obviously against G2 his Akali performance was great. Against SK his Rise performance was great. I think if you look at his now I don't like to do stats based analysis that much, but even if you watch the games, I think his biggest weakness right now is lane pace. I think outside of lane he looks a lot more comfortable, and learning the game is definitely something he needs to do in terms of like map movements. But I think him and Kirei, brand new mid jungle, right? Don't think they've ever played together before previous this split, right? So there's a lot to work on, especially when you change mid jungle for the team. I think BB can touch on this. It changes like the whole core of your team, doesn't it, and how it functions.
Yeah, I mean, luckily Kirei is a player who has a lot of experience from past teams, right? He's been in the scene for a long time, so I think he can like kind of teach some things to Nuclear. But obviously, there's definitely a lack of experience in the mid lane and like how to approach some things, and that's something that we are trying to like learn with the process. But it's never easy, But we're working on it. So.
Do you feel like? I was there last split, and we got to talk a lot about the environment. It felt pretty much like a well-oiled machine. Like you guys were all really on the same page. Has it been easy to maintain that environment, bringing in 2 new players, or has there been kind of an adjustment process to get both Kirei and Nuclearint kind of ingrained in the Schalke development process?
Honestly, it was pretty easy. Actually, we may not have shown it on stage, but actually our scrims passed. I mean, before the split even started, we had a really, really good record. I think we had around like 70% win rate against most teams, which is pretty good, right? Like we were not even close. We were not even close to that percentage last split. So I was having really, really high hopes. I was actually like, wow, we're actually going to smash it, And then the first game against Vitality, we got stomped. That wasn't like the greatest showing from us, but I think we just kind of have to pick it up. Like I think our stage games are not as good as we do in scrims so far. That could be mainly because I think people are not too comfortable yet on stage. For me personally, I think individually I've been doing fine so far. I actually really like my performance, especially in solo queue as well. I've been doing really, really well. I think I've been peaking kind of in LP in EU. I never had over 1k LP in EU, only in NA. But yeah.
Yeah, I think comfort's really important, and I think that having good scrims is a good fundamental. It's just about translating onto stage, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, does the team have good ideas right now about why it has been a struggle to transition that onto stage, or is it just little things going wrong? Is it because it's always hard? Because when you guys used to come into the studio and play on stage, I could always be like, oh, it's a different environment, it's different pressure. But when you are always playing from the same room, it's kind of hard for me to understand what causes these differences in performance, I guess.
I think it's more in like your subconsciousness. It's because like that this game matters. If you lose, then you're actually gonna lose like one game, and that's gonna matter for your standings. And I think it's not even like that people put a lot of pressure on themselves. It's just like a subconscious thing where people just underperform or sometimes even overperform. Like I tend to overperform when there's a lot of pressure actually, which I really like. But yeah, it's every individual is different, right? And hopefully people find the balance, because I think we are better than what we've shown so far.
Well, you've shown some pretty good stuff, which is my next thing, because you've obviously just played generally very well, and you've had a lot of really solid individual performances, and I think your lane phases have been really solid. But the one particular performance that stands out to me was when you absolutely bodied Wunder in Nocturne versus Set. He was like 0-7 throughout that entire game. Obviously, I think the biggest, in my eyes, from an outside perspective, the biggest contributing factor in your win against G2 feels like the entire rest of your team just got to do whatever they want because you were destroying that man. You obliterated him. Hopes, dreams,
Yeah, Flash, Solo Bolo.
Flash, solo, bolo, you got it all. Talk to me about like that. Is that just a bad matchup? Is this 1000 LP Broken Blade just unleashed on the stage? Like what's happening in some of these games? Because you are just monstering people right now.
Honestly, before I went into the game, I had no idea what the matchup was. It's like I never played it in scrims or something, but I knew it was a fine matchup for Nocturne. And Nocturne usually like always pushes in early, like almost every matchup, I believe. And he contested me level 1, and it all started from level 1 already. And I had a really good trade level 1. Then he had to teleport back. I had TP advantage, and then I got his flash 1v1. I think he just kind of, I think he didn't know really how to play the matchup, in my opinion. I have no idea, right? But that's how it looked like. And then eventually I get the solo bolo, and it all snowballed.
Yeah, I mean it was clean to watch, and it's interesting to me too because I think the other side, obviously seeing you on the Nocturne felt like the kind of pick that I would expect you to play, and I think you garnered a reputation as kind of like the side lane split pusher guy, but I've also seen you very successful recently on things like the Lulu, on the more side lane, more supportive style picks. Do you feel like your champion pool has been broadening this split a little bit? Do you feel more comfortable on these picks? Because I think that last year we saw when Schalke was starting to struggle right before you made yet another miraculous run into playoffs. You were branching out a little bit, but it was only once you started getting back into the Urgots and things that I think you look generally more comfortable on that Schalke really started to surge. But this split, you're playing pretty much everything that you get your hands on really, really well in the laning phase. So do you feel like your champion pool has just been expanding?
I mean, I think I have like more of a systematic change of like how I approach new champions. I really like to right now. I really like to spam a lot of stuff, and I like to talk to other people, other pro players. Like I really like to talk to EUphoria, for example, because I think he's a very, very good player, and I think he can give me a lot of insight. And same goes for him. Like we exchange information, and that's how I kind of uh, get to know champions faster, get to learn them faster, and that's really helpful for me. I think I kind of found my way of like learning champs very well.
It's interesting to me that you feel like you're in peak form, because when I look at your spring playoffs against like G2 and Rogue and Fnatic, it felt like you were performing really well, like Darius, Nocturne, Wukong, all that stuff. Even Karma top, you were playing so supportive role as well. Is it because the confidence in scrims and solo queue, is that what's just transitioning to make you think that you're just better than you were last split?
I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, it feels really good to be high in the ladder, right? And
Yeah.
also, as I said, the scrims were going really well. I was actually thinking that we're just going to stomp a lot of teams, and it wouldn't even be close. But obviously, it wasn't. I mean, it was kind of close, actually. But hopefully, we'll actually get there at one point, because I know how good my team can be. I know how good they are. I'm not being like delusional or anything, because I saw them play. And other teams saw us play as well. And I think we can do it. It's just about us, on us actually, to perform.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think a lot of people sometimes just say it because they want to say it, like, yeah, I think my team's good. But in reality, maybe it's not. But when you say it like this, when you're winning scrims, your team just needs more time to develop. I actually genuinely believe that. I think that Schalke could come back towards the late stages of summer. But the problem, I guess, you have now is you're just kind of on a timer, right? You only have one split to work with this new roster. Do you think that's a bad thing, or does that pressure help?
It obviously helps me again. I really like to work under pressure. I think it's I kind of need that feeling of being pressured to perform. But for my teammates, I'm not sure. But I'm all here to help Nuclear. I try to talk to him a lot. I try to talk to him about everything, how to be a good player, how to be a good teammate, and try to make him learn as much as possible in this journey, right? Because I think when I was a rookie, I would have really liked the chance of other players teaching me a lot about the game, and I just want him to give him that chance, and I think he can develop into a really, really good player.
So it sounds like a lot of focus on Nuclearint then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. Probably he's overall the youngest, least experienced on the roster, because Kirei, as much as he's had mixed success, has played. I mean, he's played internationally, he's played in the TCL, he's played here, he's played on this stage, he's played with Misfits, he's been everywhere, right? So it makes sense to see that focus. Another question on a topic that is potentially also something that hangs over your head. I don't know how you guys are feeling this, but how are the rumors of the upcoming Schalke sale affecting you, your expectations for the split? How is it affecting you at all, really, in any capacity for you and the team? Is this something that you guys think about regularly? Is it something you try to push out of your head? What's your read on those rumors and that potential situation?
So when I first got like the message that this might be happening, I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? But in the end, I thought it shouldn't impact me because I have to play the split no matter what. I have to win no matter what. I have to play my best no matter what. Anyways, I don't think it would change if I had this insurance of that that I would be playing less good or I would be more lazy. Like I still want to give it 100%, 110% every split, and because I know like that I have been lazy before. I don't want to be lazy anymore. Like I really hate this feeling of being lazy, not being able to learn champions because you just go back to your comfort. I played Aurelia so many games in NA, for example, in solo queue, or there was a time where I played like 50 games of Kalista in solo queue when we weren't even playing it in scrims, just because it was fun to me,
Yeah.
And what I really respect in this roster is like our coach Dylan. Like he's really really open about a lot of stuff, and when he thinks you're doing something bad, he's gonna tell you, like what is this? Like don't do that, and you can't just disagree with him because he wants to win, and if you want to win as well, you will do everything to do so. And
Yeah, I think comfort kind of stunts your growth in a way, right? It makes you get complacent and lazy. But when you actually go outside your comfort zone and try new things, you obviously just learn more, right? So
Yeah. I mean, League of Legends and life philosophy right there.
Yeah,
push your boundaries a little bit. Get out of your comfort zone. I like it. Let's look ahead then to the immediate future, playoffs, worlds, whatever else is going to happen. We can get there when we get there. But right now, right in front of you, I would argue is a pretty tough week of League of Legends. You got Rogue and Misfits coming up. So last question to kind of round this out. Thoughts on those matchups? How are you feeling about the team? I know you said that there's a lot of stuff that's work in progress for you guys, but are you ready for a team like Rogue? Are you ready for a team like Misfits who is doing quite well? What's your read on this weekend?
Actually, to Misfits, I think they're not very good. Like again, in scrims, we played them I think 9 games and we won 8 out of 9.
Jesus. Okay.
And I think honestly they've been kind of lucky. They've been gotten Akali a lot of games, and people didn't actually know it was OP until it was OP.
Yep.
And then everyone started playing it. Obviously, Rogue. I think Rogue is a very strong team, very proven. That is going to be probably the hardest match on our week. But obviously, we're not supposed to take any team lightly or something. I think Misfits can still beat us. It's not like we're unbeatable or anything. We're not. But I think it's going to be a tough week. Hopefully, we can get some dubs.
Okay.
I like it.
I like the openness. I like it.
I like it a lot. I like the 8-1 scrim record.
Yeah, it's very
too.
rare for a pro player just come onto the interview and be like, "Yeah, we beat them in scrims. It was 8-1 to us. Like they're pretty shit."
It's just
You
like
didn't say that. You didn't say they're.
Okay, maybe I'm inserting too much here.
Calm down.
I think honestly, before the split started, I think they had a lot of mental boom. But now that they got some wins, maybe they're better. Like I don't know. Maybe they didn't play at their full potential. Like I think they might be actually better than they showed us in scrims. But yeah,
and we'll find out. Maybe Schalke will be the team to knock them down at Abbedagge. We'll find. It could also be Excel, their other opponent for the week. We'll see. See if you guys can get the win. Either way, Broken Blade, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for the openness. It's good to hear from you. It's good to hear about the team and kind of the confidence in building up a new guy like Nuclearint. And good luck on all your matchups coming up in week 3.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Broken Blade. It was wonderful to have him on the show. Of course, they play Rogue and Misfits this weekend, Caedrel. And we just talked about
spicy.
it. Rogue and Misfits.
I like spicy sauce. And now Karen.
Oh my God.
Rogue and Misfits.
Rogue and Misfits versus Schalke. Tell me what you think about that.
Rogue and Misfits versus Schalke.
Yeah. What is it? I think he says Misfits are overrated, but until proven otherwise, I think Misfits are going to keep beating the mid-tier teams. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think my biggest question to that would be when were those scrims, right? Preseason scrims can be fake data at times. So if it was before the split started, maybe they just improved. I think Misfits probably, what I would say is they might go 1-1 this week at best. I think they're probably going to lose to Rogue. I think Rogue
Schalke, not Misfits. Misfits play Excel. Excuse me, Schalke. Schalke play Misfits Rogue.
Oh, Schalke play Misfits Rogue. Oh, my bad. Apologies. I had the wrong around. So I think Schalke are probably going to lose to Rogue. Like Broken Blade said, like they're such a good team. I think that I would favor Rogue beating almost every team in the league apart from, G2.
Yeah.
And then in terms of Misfits, it's hard to say. I think that Broken Blade saying they've been getting their hands on Akali too much gives me some inkling as to what they might do. Take that away from them, and we'll see what they're like without it, because VT obviously carrying games on Akali. And then you have like Nuclearint versus VTO, which I think is a really cool mid lane matchup, because they're both like young blood players, very young, brand new to the scene. Although VTO did play in spring, right? I think they're both very young and new. And we have Kirei versus Razork. So I think mid jungle was a really cool place to start with that matchup.
Yeah, I think the big thing to me is that as much as Nuclearint has been promising, VTO's been proven. And again, similar to last split, the Akali is what's working out best. He has a solid Victor game, but I want to see him on more stuff besides the comfort picks. But Razork as a jungler, while he's kind of quietly fallen out of the top jungler discussion with the rise of Elyoya and so many people others stepping up playing well, Kirei still hasn't really impressed me yet, and I feel like that's got to be a big edge.
Yeah, he's only really had the performances on Sins out to win them the games. And just touching on both junglers in general, Razork, as Broken Blade was touching on, he was really high LP in solo queue. He was above 1000 LP, and that gave him a lot of confidence. Razork is actually rank 1 right now on the solo queue ladder, 1.4k LP, so he must have a lot of confidence behind him. Maybe the scrims are going well as well, so he's definitely feeling himself, and I think you can see Razork in these games. He is really good. He's really, really good on things like the Udyr and the Rumble. Doing a lot of damage for his team while also making a lot of plays around the map and just forcing things with intelligence behind the force rather than just doing it because they're bored, as we were talking about earlier. But Kirei definitely needs to see more from him. He had a really bad Talia game, which seemed out of place to pick in general, but he did get cheese level 1. He did fall behind level 1.
Yeah.
And then just the Xin Zhao games, even then, when he's playing Xin Zhao, it feels like he's not really like... You look at Dan, for example, on the Xin Zhao game, absolute stellar performance. You look at Kirei's Xin Zhao games, it doesn't feel like he's the one driving the team to win it. It's just like he's just there and he's doing his job. It's not like above or below average. It's just he's just doing average things. So I need to see more from him. Kirei is a player who, just for some pro player inside context here, has been top 10 in Challenger for the last 5 to 6 years, non-stop, consistently.
Yeah.
Hovering around that or finishing the season that. So everyone always thought Kirei was an amazing jungler. He's done really, really well in National League as well. Really great performances all the time. Just getting to LEC was difficult, and now that he's here, he just needs to, find
that
his form.
brief period of time when he was on the Misfits kind of B squad that got subbed in the midst of that failed Misfits super team year. And he just, it's crazy because he's always been around. You know what I mean? He's always been around, and he's always been so close, and he's always been so good in solo queue, as you highlighted, but he just has never quite found his stride in LEC.
Just one more step.
Yeah.
That's all he needs.
Just a little bit more. Maybe he'll find it this week. As highlighted by Broken Blade, obviously a lot of the team's focus and a lot of the team's effort is going to Nuclearint, but it's not like I think other players are getting left by the wayside, and we just have to hope that whatever's happening in scrims for Schalke, at least for their sake, can manifest on stage so that we at least get a banger matchup between Rogue and Misfits. We'll see who comes out on top. Other thing, Fnatic versus G2 this weekend.
Oh, El Clasico.
El Clasico, big opportunity for new Fnatic, I think. Huge. I think for G2, winning is probably not super significant because fans will always just be, it's baby Fnatic. They're still learning how to play the game. They're still working together as a team. It's difficult. Whereas Fnatic, it's like, if you lose, that's kind of expected. But if you win, oh shit, you just lost a Whippo jungle.
Yeah, and I love to measure the team's strengths by not how they perform against bottom tier teams, but against top tier teams, right?
Yeah.
And Fnatic beat Rogue. And G2 also beat Rogue. And I think Rogue's a very good measuring tool to say, like, well, they're probably top 2 in the league. If you beat them after coming off of their good performances in the spring and their really good fundamentals already, then props to you. They almost lost the vitality, of course, because they throw and they have made mistakes. It's not like they're this robotic team, which are always great. But they're a very good measuring tool, I think, in the league. They lost to Fnatic. I think Fnatic, obviously, really good composition. And now it's G2 versus Fnatic. And I think this will be the second time we'll see how strong is Fnatic. If G2 stomped them, there's still a little bit more room to grow. But if Fnatic beat G2 all of a sudden, it's like, hang on. They beat Rogue and G2. Sorry, what?
Yeah. But again, like this is the thing: is that victory can be because I think the thing is like if we just go Fnatic win without looking at how Fnatic end up winning, I think we're probably doing a disservice because Fnatic can win in like some weird, ridiculous way. Because ultimately, like let's look back the Schalke versus Vitality game, the first game where they just got first blood and there's like 2 kills and the game was instantly over. Like that's a good win for Vitality. But if you just show me that win on paper, I would, replicating it's so hard. And similarly, if Vitality had won that game versus Rogue, where Rogue just chain into the Gwen, it would have been like, yes, good job, Vitality, but you were so far down in the early game that it's like, I can't really say you're a crazy great team for getting ran into and taking a game. You know what I mean?
I think context is always important when you look at the games, but I think that if you look at this game, Fnatic versus G2, I think this is a more important game for Fnatic, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of positives, right? If G2 beat Fnatic,
it's fine.
You know, Fnatic doesn't matter.
Fnatic,
especially
even
if they get
playoffs,
stomped, you know, it's week 3. If Fnatic beat G2 after having beaten Rogue as well, I think that gives a lot of confidence to Adam, to Bwipo on the roll swap. The bot lane can feel a lot more confident that their top side's going to perform. And that's what you need. Like that injection of confidence could be huge for them. And obviously G2 losing to Fnatic would suck for them.
Yeah.
Reckless losing to Fnatic will always suck. But I think the biggest thing is Fnatic beating them is the most important thing to me.
Upset Hillisang versus Mickey Reckless. I will never get tired of this bot lane matchup. It's hype. Oh, it's going to be so good. That said, there's some other games. I think both the Schalke matchups are interesting. Schalke versus Misfits, Schalke versus Rogue. There's a lot of games remaining in this week.
There's a lot of teams to keep your eye on.
True, but there's a lot of one-sided games. I think it's going to be the struggle here of week 3. Schalke Misfits feels like it can be competitive. Schalke Rogue is definitely very Rogue favored.
You say one-sided, but you look at the end of spring, and everyone was like losing to everyone out of nowhere, which is really weird.
So I think the positive framing of this week is there's a lot of room for upsets.
Yeah.
But if
for
you
upset
want
to beat G2.
Oh.
That joke's been made too many times.
Yes. I'm upset. Anyway.
50,000.
Oh my head, that's disrespect. All right. Anyway. What was I going to say? You told me there's a lot of matchups that I think, like, if you were betting, it's pretty easy to see who the odds are favored for. You know what I mean? Mostly we got Misfits Excel, easy Misfits, Fnatic Astralis, easy Fnatic, Schalke Misfits, close. G2 Fnatic, maybe a little bit closer, but SK Mad, Vitality G2, Rogue Astralis, SKXL, another banger, not for the right reasons, but a potential banger there. That one could go either way. But for the most part, I would say 7 of the 10 matchups that we're seeing this weekend are heavily favored towards one side. And as you highlighted, Caedrel, it just means more room for upsets, baby. Let's go.
That's right.
Sweet. This has been Season 8, Episode 3 of EUphoria. The initial title of this was Baby Daddy, spelled BB Daddy. But there's going to be a new title because without context, I think that's probably just a weird vibe for someone to read on YouTube and not clickbaity enough. So we'll find a different title.
The first thing to see is us.
We're debating. Caedrel and I are having a child. No, we're out of control this week. I don't know what it is. The energy is wild in here. Maybe it's just because it's finally not 1,000,000 degrees out. All of our energy is flowing out. But this has been Season 8, Episode 3 of the EUphoria podcast. Thanks again to Broken Blade. Good luck to all the teams this weekend. And we'll see you guys next week for more. Or this weekend for more. Friday, LEC, tune in.
Bye.